Welcome to the Sponsored Rider Club podcast, your guide to motorsports sponsorship. Here's your host, Josh Weesey.
Welcome to this episode of the Sponsored Rider Club podcast, which is powered by AMSOIL. I am very excited to bring you this guest today, Brad Kowitz of TrailRecon. Brad is phenomenal. If you ever get a chance, go check out his YouTube channel, which is TrailRecon. He's got over 138,000 subscribers, so it's absolutely phenomenal. We get into some of his advice around YouTube, how to get engagement there. We also talk about Jeeps in general and off-roading in general. We talk about trademarks. There's a bunch of good stuff we get into for this show, so really phenomenal. I want to tell you now, though, about a little bit more actually about my voice, and then I'm going to tell you about AMSOIL. So in this show, I had laryngitis. I had hardly any voice. I was coughing up a storm. Like, now when I'm recording this intro, I sound phenomenal, and I still sound pretty horrible. But it's so much better than it was. But guess what? Through the whole episode, that's how I am. Absolutely struggling through pretty much every word. But Brad carried the torch for us, kept the show on track. And I did a bunch of editing to get rid of my coughs and, unraveling the cough drops and stuff like that. But either way, I'm out of it now. The next shows are not going to be like this. But, hey, it happened this time, and we got through it. But now I want to tell you a little bit about AMSOIL. So if this is the first time you listen to the show, you probably haven't seen that AMSOIL has been working with us since May of 2018. And they've got phenomenal products. But probably what I want to talk about now is the people that are behind the scenes. In this show, I talk a lot about, that there's humans that make decisions behind the scenes. And, we've had Lindsay Primo on the show. She works a lot with the social media and sponsorship at AMSOIL. She's phenomenal. She's got a guest blog post on our website too. But, there's also Kevin Kastner, who, was my host at Heydays and who's been phenomenal support in this show. Behind the scenes, like, you give him feedback about, hey, here's how the show's performing. He comes back like, hey, nice work, or here's some tips to change things up. Great stuff. Same with Nick Lansing. I just want to shout out some of those people because they've been phenomenal supporters of us. And I've told you before on the show, I really get behind the people. Every one of the sponsors that supports the show, I'm behind the people that make those businesses run. And either way, this is, I guess, just a shout out to all them. But I guess I should call out those other companies too, the other people who have sponsored this episode. We have SolderWeld. They produce game-changing metal bonding technology. TopThePodium.com. They're experts in motorsport sponsorship. Bold Racing, they're a family race team and GSP XTV axle specialist. Neverlift Racing, they create comfortable, race-inspired apparel. And then Crash Act Industries, they provide human protection and extreme racing products. I also want to shout out some of our other partners, including MBRP, HMK USA, Studboy Traction, and of course, GSP XTV. Now, this show is intended to help you better promote yourself, provide more value for your sponsors, ultimately grow your sponsorship program. So we talk about a host of things, through these shows. But today, we're focused on that content creation, some of the things that you can do to help build relationships, within your niche, within your community, within your race team, within your sponsorship program, whatever it is. That's what we're talking about today. So I'm glad that you've joined us. If you're getting value out of the show, go ahead and head over to iTunes, leave a rating and review. That does wonders for keeping the show alive, so please do that. And if you want to ever shoot me a message, josh@sponsoredriderclubpodcast.com. Without further ado, let's hop in. Today I'm super pumped. We've got Brad Kowitz of TrailRecon coming on the show, and I like I said, I'm super excited to have you on here, but I just gotta warn the audience. You could probably already tell from my voice, I am still suffering from some laryngitis thing. I got the meds. I got my, I don't know what this thing is called. Like, it's my own special concoction here. I probably shouldn't say what's in it, but it's blackberry brandy, water, and honey to get my voice through this thing. I got cough drops lined up, but so just deal with it, folks. But luckily you got Brad here. Brad is going to be doing a lot of the talking. So Brad, why don't you fill in the gaps from that horrible intro of mine and tell us a little bit about you?
Well, right on, man. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. This is my first podcast, so I'm super pumped to be here today. Yeah. Look, I'm like I said, I'm Brad Kowitz. I'm the creator of the YouTube channel TrailRecon that I've been managing for a little over 3 years now. But what a lot of people don't know is I'm actually a retired Navy corpsman. I was in the Navy for 26 years. And so doing YouTube was something that was never really on my horizon. It just kind of fell into place. Going from being in the Navy to doing YouTube is just it's a strange transition. I'm married for 24 years. I got 3 great kids, and I have a true passion for, going out and having some awesome adventures and turning wrenches in the garage.
No, it's perfect. And, I talked with you a little bit about this in the pre-interview, but I just recently got into the whole Jeep world. I actually had one, back in 2003, 2004, an old XJ. Excuse me. I'm going to stop and cough randomly through the show. It's going to be a nightmare to get through, but I had an old XJ, and I got out of the game for a long time. I've been driving around F-150 since then, but just recently I got the bug back, and I wanted to get a JK, and I started watching your show. So this would have probably been like October, maybe a little bit before that when I really got the bug. And man, I love your show. It's good stuff. It's good content. You and I were talking a little bit earlier about like kind of like our branding as well. So I keep all my content clean so that young riders and racers have access to clean content. You do the same. You have like a family focused show. But like I just clicked with it. It's good stuff. And a lot of people that listen to the show, they're like, how do I do YouTube? How do I get into this type of content creation? Because it's tough. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. But before we get into all that fun stuff later in what I call Heat 2, the sponsorship tactics and strategies, I want to know your story. I want to know how you got started in this whole thing. Like, you went from the Navy to this. Like, I want to dig into that more. So let's get started, man. Take us to the beginning.
Yeah. So let me go back to like when I was a kid, because I have been a motorhead, like a car enthusiast motorhead my entire life. My dad, he was a big classic car guy, and we used to go to, car shows, and he'd always be wrenching in the garage. And so that just became part of who I was when I was growing up. And so I've just always loved, just being in the garage, modifying vehicles and stuff. And so the Jeep is just, it's the perfect vehicle to do that. But I have 3 boys. And several years ago when they were young, we bought a bunch of motorcycles and quads, and we go out in the desert here in California and just go have, some awesome adventures, but we wanted to do more, and we wanted to explore more. And so buying a Jeep and being kind of self-contained just seemed like the normal progression. Mm-hmm. And so now we have 4 Jeeps in the family, and we're modifying them and, wrenching with them and going out and have some cool adventures. It's been pretty crazy, but it's fun. I mean, I just love off-road adventure.
So you've got, let me see if I can name them, because I think I've seen a number of your Jeeps, but like there's a lot of them. So you got your main one, which is your silver JK, right? And then you've got,
yep.
Is it a yellow JL? Is that right?
Right. That's my wife's Jeep.
That's your
wife's
Jeep.
We just got that a few months ago.
And then you've got, I can't remember what the Grand Cherokees are called. Grand Cherokees white. I don't know.
So we got a YJ for my son.
Yes.
Yep. And that thing's completely stock still. We just got that like 2 months ago.
Perfect. And then what's the fourth one? Oh, it's an XJ, right?
So the fourth, the XJ. So we bought the XJ 2 years ago, and that was really for I have twins, and that was for them to use to go to and from school and just around town, and it was really cool because we just started filming those projects in the garage, and people were they really kind of became really engaged with that, father son working in the garage interaction. So that actually became a pretty big part of the channel.
Yeah, definitely. It's pretty incredible. I mean, I think off-road in general is pretty incredible. Like there's a different type of person that really gets into that stuff. And everybody can connect in their own special way, but I just now am immersing myself in the Jeep community, and it's like beyond anything I've ever thought about it. I mean, there's an accessory, like you can accessorize your accessories, and like everybody has their own nicknames. I didn't know you had to do that for a little bit. Like you got to name your Jeeps, or like 90% of the Jeep owners have names for them, and like everybody's got their own social media profile just for their own Jeep. It's pretty ridiculous. Even I do now. I created my own Instagram for my Jeep a couple weeks ago, and that thing performs better than this podcast thing I've been working on for years. It's just it's incredible. It really is.
It is. People love vehicles. I mean, I don't know what it is. I was a classic car guy. I've had, like a 72 Firebird, a 65 Galaxy. I had a bunch of old cars, and I go to the car shows or whatever. But you're right. The Jeep community, the off-road community, it really is just a big community of people, like-minded folks. And I don't know, everybody just has this passion for going off-roading and really using the vehicles and modifying them. And it's just a different dynamic than when I was, doing classic cars and that kind of stuff.
Definitely. And, like the Jeepers have their own definitions of if you're really allowed in the Jeep community to an extent. There's like the hardcore people, like if you have, anything newer than a, 1960s Willys, like you're not part of the club. And then there's the people who are like, look, if you are driving a Renegade, one of the new Renegades, like you're in with us. Like we can all hang out together.
I think there's a few of those kind of people out there, but we go out to some big club event runs and just off road. I don't know, even Toyota guys and Jeep guys, believe it or not, they can actually get along. But there's a couple that are purists. Like if you're not driving a CJ, then you're not driving a real Jeep or whatever.
Exactly.
But at the end of the day, I mean, you're out having a great adventure together. So
it's interesting you just mentioned the Toyota thing. It seems like if you have a Toyota Tacoma, you can kind of hang out with the Jeep folks. That's okay. Like that, for some reason, I don't understand this connection, but there's a connection. It's like every Jeeper has some Toyota Tacoma friend out there that they're like, yeah, you can come along with us. That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think the off-road community just as a whole is a great group of folks. I mean, I have 4 Jeeps. But I've always said from the beginning, TrailRecon isn't a Jeep channel. It's an off-road channel. It's for everybody. And so I get that a lot from people that watch the channel. They're like, I don't even own a Jeep, dude, but right. I really enjoy the content.
Right. No, that's perfect. I want to know more about how you even made the decision to do this, because like you're saying, 26 years in the Navy, I mean, you got a full family built. Like, why the YouTube thing? What drove you down that path?
Well, so I think if you would have asked me 5 years ago, hey, Brad, you're going to be managing a YouTube channel, I probably would have laughed out loud, because right. There's no way I would have ever imagined that this is what I'd be doing today. But the kind of the creation story is the first time we took our Jeep off-road, my son was sitting in the back of the Jeep with his cell phone, and he was kind of filming it. And I didn't even realize he was doing it at the time. And by the time he got home, he had put a little video together with some app that he edited it with on his phone. And it was pretty cool. And I was like, man, we should do that every time we go out, just to kind of keep a little diary of our adventures. And so we did that. We were going out like every weekend, because, we brand new Jeep. We wanted to go explore. That's right. What we were doing. And so we filmed a video of a trail we were on it, and we were doing it for us. So we would try to make it a little bit better than the last video. And by the time we probably had 4 or 5 videos, we wanted to do something with them besides just have them on a phone or the computer. So we uploaded them to YouTube just to have a place to store them. But it wasn't even TrailRecon. It was just our family YouTube page, just whatever. And what the crazy thing was is people were watching them and they were asking like, hey, how did you get to that trail? What was it like? Was it difficult? Would my vehicle be able to go? And it was like, I was like amazed that people were watching these videos. But that they had all these questions. I was like, man, there's a need to answer some of these questions. And so we really, we kind of upgraded our camera gear, and I started learning about filming and about editing. And we really worked hard to try to take the viewer with us along the trail so they would understand what the trail is like. So if they wanted to go out there and do it, it would be, beneficial to them. And then it just blew up from there. I mean, then people were like, well, what did you do to your Jeep? How did you install that winch or that light bar or those tires? And so we started doing stuff in the garage. and we go out with other friends, and they'd want to know about, their Jeep or their truck. And so we'd, film video walk-arounds of that stuff, and things they just snowballed over the last 3 years. It's been a ton of work, but I love making YouTube videos.
Oh, that's perfect. When did you decide to say, like, all right, we're going to put a brand around this? Like, it's not just going to be our family channel. We're going to make this thing into something that is, marketable and something that's recognizable.
I think it's been an evolution. I mean, I think early on, probably, I don't know, I want to say maybe after we reached like 100 subscribers, that was a big milestone.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, maybe we need to, come up with a brand here. And I think that's probably about the time that we decided on TrailRecon was going to be the name. But again, it was just kind of casual and for fun, and we post a video once in a while or whatever. But then as you start hitting these milestones, you hit 1,000 subscribers, and I was blown away that there was 1,000 people that wanted to watch a video. You start realizing that you almost have a little bit of a responsibility to these people to put out good content. And so, I worked hard on, developing the YouTube channel, making sure the channel page was presentable. It just, I don't know, it just kind of grew from there. I never really set a goal to, hey, I'm going to make YouTube videos. That's my goal. It just kind of happened. I mean, now we're at that point. Now we're at the point, the last 2 years that it's like, okay, this is what I'm doing. And I've got a big following that I want to make sure that I'm keeping happy with all, good content. But in the beginning, it was really kind of a slow process. I think to go back and do it all over again, if I would have put more time into it that first year, who knows where it would be right now. So.
Yeah. There's always this, there's this stigma, I guess, that somebody who's builds a strong following, that they at some point, like, there's this breaking point. And sometimes it is, right? Sometimes you have this crazy viral video or some sort of crazy, let's say if you're a racer and you win some huge race, maybe that's like your breakthrough moment. But a lot of times, especially in the show, I interview people, there is no true, that was our defining moment. There's these things they build and they evolve and they change over time. And what I like to encourage people to do is, if they have an idea for something that they think is going to help them stand out or get their message out there, just start doing it. Like, you started with your kid in the back seat with, some phone app, and that, get it out there into the world and then evolve it from there. It doesn't need to be, if you'd have tried to make the same quality content that you're doing right now on day one, you might never have gotten anything released. So it's that evolution, I think, it's important, and it's actually probably fun as well.
Yeah, you're right on point. I tell people this all the time, that if you have an idea, you just need to just do it. I mean, I don't want to try to promote Nike or anything, but you just need to just start creating content, right? You need to just do it. And people are just so worried about, I want to get everything just right or whatever. And look, just make a video. You'll learn a ton from that first video, and then make the next video and the next video. Just stick with it. I think people are so hesitant to do it, or they don't want to commit to, doing it, every week or twice a week. But once you start doing that, you learn so much about the video content and what works and what doesn't work. It's just sometimes just pulling the trigger and okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to make a video, and I'm going to be consistent every week. I'm going to post a video, and it will make a tremendous difference. Yeah,
definitely. Well, what are you up to right now? What's your big thing that you're really pumped about?
So I'm super psyched about the trip we just got back from last week. Mm-hmm. We just got back from me, my oldest son, and a few good friends. We spent 4 days in the Mojave Desert. We did 147 miles across the desert. It was such an awesome trip. I mean, I was with the best guys. We had some breakdowns, but we just had the best adventure. But while day 2 out there in the middle of the desert, we got 3 inches of snow, which was completely unexpected. So it was just an awesome adventure. And I just posted that video, and folks are, they're really enjoying it. But I'm fired up in 2019. We've got some really cool places we're going to go. We're going to go back to Moab, Colorado, Arizona, and then we're going to plan a trip up to the Pacific Northwest because, there's just so many trails out there, and I've been to all those places, but I want to go back and hit the trails that I haven't gone to and film those. And so for me, it's all about new adventures in 2019, and doing it with good friends and meeting new friends. So I'm pretty stoked about that. But plus, we've got all these Jeeps now in the family that we're going to be doing some projects on in the garage. So that's going to keep us busy as well. So we've got a lot planned for 2019. I just hope I can get what I want done. I got a lot of goals. We'll see.
Yeah, definitely. The snow piece, for people listening right now, it is January 11th of 2019 when we're recording this. So I'm recording out of Michigan. So I should be expecting snow right now. I don't live in the desert. So that's, I was jealous when I saw your snow post. I'm like, come on guys, my snowmobile is legitimately just sitting idle, has been for the last month because we've had nothing. And I was like, what's the desert is getting more snow than we're getting over here in Michigan.
Yeah, that was so crazy. I mean, we knew it was going to be cold out there, and we thought there was going to be a little rain, but we had made a decision on the trip to head like 8 miles off the trail to this campsite that none of us had ever been to, but we had heard about. And it just happened to be at like 5,500 feet elevation. And for whatever reason, the snow came down that low that night, and we got 3 inches, and it just ended up being just totally magical. It was a great trip. Yeah,
that's pretty cool. And you know what? We haven't really talked about this yet. Now, I know more about what you specialize in, which I would say is the overlanding, but the listeners of this show, they tend to be the off-road racers, the, ATV, UTV, the dirt bikes, some snowmobilers. There's not a lot of, overlanders here. So what is overlanding? Can you just kind of briefly break that down for people listening?
Yes. So I tell people I'm a hybrid. I like to go climb the rocks and play with the rocks, but then I like to throw the tent up there and go have some good adventures. But overlanding is, by most people's definition, is just self-sustained vehicle travel. And so what it is for me is, I've got a Jeep that I have I've got a fridge in there. I've got, all my camping gear. I've got a rooftop tent on the top, and, we'll go spend several days out on the trail in the middle of nowhere, just being self-contained. It's so peaceful to be able to do that, to just go places that other people can't go, and to not have to worry about going to a hotel or, okay, now I got to leave the trail and go to this place, just to be by yourself. Like I said, that Mojave Trail was 147 miles. We didn't see anything in between. It was just pure desert. And so overlanding it's fun. It's a blast, especially if you have a good group of people that you're doing it with. That, to me, it's about the adventure, but it's also about the people that you're with. But I love that just as much as I love going and hitting, the Rubicon Trail and going to Moab and climbing Poison Spider and doing some of those technical trails as well. So I like to kind of do it all. It's fun for me.
No, that's perfect. I wanted to bring that up a little bit. And part of it is because it's selfish. I want to bring it up because I've been fascinated by the overlanding piece. I used to do my own little versions of it when I had ATVs and when I had side-by-sides. You pack everything you can, you self-sustain for, a couple of days. And Upper Michigan and the Upper Peninsula, it's pretty, there's not a lot out there. It's a lot of nice trails and, just empty places where you can stop and, pitch a tent. But, there's always those little frustrations with it, like, especially with the UTV with the ATV, there's just only so much gear you can hold, and you always have to throw the tent up, and then if it rains, like, you're on the ground, everything's a mess. But then I started seeing this overlanding and these rooftop tents, and I'm like, okay, I think I need to take my ATV camping trips to the next level here pretty soon.
Yeah, I did a lot of backpacking for many, many years, and so I'm used to going out and camping and just being minimal stuff, just whatever I can carry. And so when we first started doing it, I was taking very little stuff with me, and it's a Jeep. It doesn't hold a lot of stuff anyway.
Right.
So you don't need a rooftop tent and a refrigerator to go have some awesome adventures, but they are some really nice luxuries that you really enjoy. So.
And there's so many things you can do with those things. It's ridiculous. If you're listening right now and you have no intention of ever getting into this stuff, just go look at it. Like, check out one of Brad's episodes on TrailRecon you'll see ones with like rooftop tent reviews or walk-arounds he's done with other people's vehicles, and the amount of tweaks and accessories and modifications you make, it's incredible. It's a lot of fun. So I'm pretty sure, I know the listeners well enough that I think you'd really enjoy this, just checking it out. So I wanted to know a little bit about, some of the partners that you work with. I know there's a couple of companies that you work with specifically for TrailRecon. Who are they?
So I've been blessed to work with some great sponsors over the years. But what I've kind of grown to learn is it's all about the relationship with the sponsor. In the beginning, people just wanted to send me stuff and just do a video review or whatever. But I've learned that doesn't really add value to me or the manufacturer or the viewer. And so I really try to work with companies now that we have kind of a collaborative relationship where, I'm using their product and they're sharing my content. So we kind of both benefit from them. So right now I have 2 long-term relationships with Casey Highlights, which is an awesome lighting company. And then a smaller company that I really enjoyed working with, which is called 67 Design. And they make a lot of mounting software or gear for, holding your phones and that kind of stuff. They have a good fit. They get good products and stuff. Actually, I was using their products long before we were sponsored with them, which, works out really well. But having sponsor support on YouTube is really necessary, because it helps you kind of create better content. Because if somebody sends, if Casey Highlights says, here's a couple of lights, I'm able to, use those lights. I can review them. I can share them with my viewers. And I just created a video that everybody gets value from, because now the viewer knows about those lights. I was able to create a video and KC gets a little bit of publicity from it. So it's good to have that relationship. I talk to a lot of sponsors. People talk to me all the time, but if the relationship just doesn't fit, sometimes I say no. I think it's more important about, what it's going to be like going forward. Ironically, I actually talked to 2 companies today that I really hope things work out, because one is a tire company and another one is a wheel company. So that would be great to have them on board. I hope, fingers crossed, that works out. One thing that has, over the last 2 years, that's really been helpful for, not so much in terms of sponsorship, it's almost like sponsoring yourself, is the Amazon Associate Program. So what Amazon Associate Program is if you have, let's say, I'll just use my refrigerator in the back of my Jeep for an example. I bought that refrigerator full price. But I have an Amazon Associate account, and so now I have a specific link. So I can talk about that product, the refrigerator, on my video, and if they click in the description on that link, then I get a little bit of revenue if they choose to buy that refrigerator. So it's almost like sponsoring yourself. You can choose the products that you want to use, but it still helps bring in a little bit of revenue. So that's something I'm going to focus a little more on in 2019, because I think the viewers appreciate that, because it's still important to have company-backed support, but it's also nice to be able to just say, this is the product I want to use, and I don't want to have to worry about other obligations that go with sponsorship. I'm just going to talk about this product and just go with it.
Yeah, definitely. And, one thing we see from our listeners sometimes too, they will choose to sell or distribute certain product. So the sponsor relationship is like, hey, we've decided or we've committed to sell this product through our own store, whether it's an Amazon store or a Shopify or whatever it is. And that's another good way too. If you believe in the product, it's a different relationship, but you've got a lot of really good control over which products you pick, which ones you promote, and then it turned into a sales relationship too. So that's kind of cool. And it's the same as, that's basically an affiliate marketing program to an extent. Like some companies will say, hey, put my link on your website or in your blog post, and all the traffic that comes to us and every sale we make from your link, you'll get a revenue percentage of that. So Amazon has that good program in place, but that's huge. I mean, it's something almost anybody can do, especially if you're not ready for a full-on sponsorship proposal or a sponsorship deal, you can get in these things. All you need is good content and good products.
Yeah, for sure. And it's a good way to bring in, additional revenue, to diversify your revenue, because, I mean, let's face it, the YouTube ad revenue isn't, you're not going to make millions unless, you've got, 10 million followers, whatever. But so diversifying, your revenue stream, having the AdSense revenue, having a little bit of sponsorship support, and having that Amazon and a few other things can really kind of help you. And you want to reinvest back into the channel so you can make it better. Buying camera gear and computers to edit your stuff with. I in the first year, I think just about every dime I made, I reinvested back in the channel, and so having that ability to do that is important.
Definitely. Well, speaking of sponsors, I actually want to take a quick minute here. We're going to pause to thank the sponsors for this podcast.
Look, I'm sorry, but I got to admit something. I like to look cool. I like to wear high quality clothing. I like it to be comfortable, and I also like it to portray the values that I also hold true to myself. That's why I like Neverlift Racing. So they were founded in 2013, and they are all about high quality, comfort, and looking cool. So like I said before, exactly what I'm looking for out of clothing. Admittedly, my favorite shirt of all time is the Neverlift Racing silver badge t-shirt. Like, I wear this thing probably too often because way too many pictures of me on social media are wearing this shirt. Either way, they have a ton more out there. So go get your shirt, your hoodie, your hat, and actually your socks. Probably one of the most comfortable pair of socks I've ever owned too. And they got pretty cool things where it says never on one side, lift on the other. Really cool stuff. Get your apparel. Wear something that supports your values. Live fast, drive hard, Neverlift Racing. 2 questions I get continuously about this show and about sponsorship is, do I need my own website and do I need a resume? The answer is, in my opinion, yes to both, and that's why we partner with TopThePodium.com. Now, if you want to see an example of what a professional website and what a professional resume looks like, you gotta check out TopThePodium.com. They did my website. The Sponsored Rider Club podcast website is sponsoredriderclubpodcast.com. That was created by Jeff Vanistall of TopThePodium.com. I think it's awesome. I get a lot of good feedback about it. And there's a number of other websites out there that Jeff has produced that are just phenomenal. So I think it's important in this world of social media where you have control of your content. That's what a website does. It gives you full control. We don't know what Facebook's going to do sometimes. We don't know what Instagram's going to do. We don't know what Twitter's going to do. So if we don't have that central location to direct people and house our content, there is some risk that we incur. So I strongly recommend getting a website, talking to TopThePodium.com. And then the resume, again, is massive. And if you want to stand out, get it done professionally. And honestly, it is one of the best ways to step up your game and present yourself in the best way possible. Safety is our overriding priority. I hear it all the time, but I have to ask myself, is it though? Is that the first thing we think of? Is that the first thing you think of? Over the past couple of years, we've seen the performance of production UTVs increase, somewhere around 350%. That means these machines give us a lot more opportunity to have fun and win races, but it also, unfortunately, gives us new opportunities to crash. And that's why we have partnered with Crash Addict Industries. The owner, Travis Pointer, became very accustomed to crashing early in his career. He saw it as inevitable, and he set out to make the process safer. With a passion for racing, welding, and engineering, Crash Addict Industries now produces full cage and other protection systems intentionally designed to protect you during an accident on the track. They also offer a line of human protection products through their vendors. Do this for me at this point. If you're racing with a stock cage right now, please go check out CrashAddict.com and at least just see what they have to offer. Even if you choose to go with a different company, please make safety your overriding priority.
What's up, everyone? This is Mike Pasquarella, founder of Desert Vets Racing. When the team goes racing, we always have our SolderWeld products with us. Keeping the cars in the fight is our number one concern. With SolderWeld, we can do that. SolderWeld is a leading company in the U.S. for aluminum repair. They specialize in radiator repair on the fly. If you're stuck in the middle of the trail or a race with a hole in your radiator, oil pan, or canister, or even an aluminum line, you can fix it right then and there in a matter of minutes with their AMSOIL aluminum repair rods and flux. It's the only complete and lasting fix in the off-road community. SolderWeld's new UTV off-road kits fit in every ride and are easy to access on the fly.
SolderWeld continues to make a huge positive impact on this industry. So I really encourage you, get in there now. Go to solderweld.us, check out their products, because this stuff is changing the game. Family race team. Those are the first words that come to mind when I think of Bold Racing. And the next one is actually axles. Bold Racing is a premier distributor of GSP XTV axles. And if that wasn't cool enough, they just came out with an entirely new axle called the Revolution axle. It is a hollow tube axle. It's really cool. If you head over to their website, gspxtv.com, or you can find out more at boldracingltd.com, you can find out how this new axle technology works. So they are saying to view this as a fuse for your drivetrain. So the hollow tube CV axle twist technology actually increases the strength and reliability of the axle, and it also reduces stress on the drivetrain. Plus, honestly, it's super cool looking, and if people know me, they know that I really like cool looking stuff. So they come in this really cool gold color. Check it out. It's absolutely revolutionary.
All right, welcome back, everybody. We're in Heat 2, so we made it through Heat 1 initially in the intro without me completely losing my cool in a round of coughing spells, but like I'm pounding the cough drops right now. I'm pounding the water. Brad's hanging there with me. But we're going to get into some of the details here. We've already kind of alluded to some of these things, but I want to understand in this section more about like how Brad goes about creating content, what are the important elements of that, and we're going to dive a little bit deeper into that too. But let's start there, content creation. I kind of prepped you on this in the pre-interview. There's a lot of people that listen to the show that they've gotten really good at Instagram, maybe they got some strengths on Facebook, but YouTube is really something that it's hard to break into. So I want to talk more about that. So from your perspective, what do you think are the critical elements that we need to think about in creating good content on YouTube?
Yeah, that's a $1 million question for any YouTube creator. It really is. I can say I've learned a lot about what doesn't work over the years, but I'm still, even this last video I posted, I'm still refining and trying to improve on what works. But I think there's some key elements for a good YouTube video. And the really important thing is you got to provide value to the person that's watching it. People they come to YouTube because they want to get something out of it. And for me, there's a couple ways that I try to provide value. And one is in how-to videos, showing people how to install stuff on their Jeep or how to repair stuff. We've all gone to YouTube because we want to learn something. And so I think if you can provide a good how-to video, that's a great way to add value to viewers. The other one is product reviews. People always want to know, is this, refrigerator better than that refrigerator? And so sharing your experiences with stuff that you personally use is really valuable. That's that whole influencer marketing thing. People want to know, what you're using and why you're using it and how it's working for you. And so it's really been important to share the truth about the products that I'm using. And the last thing, and this is the one that is definitely the hardest to provide value, and that's to tell a good story. When we do our trail videos, the last thing I want to do is just throw a GoPro camera on my window and just drive the trail and say there's a trail video. We try to tell some kind of story along the way and try to make it dynamic and film it differently so that they get something out of it. Not only are they learning about the trail, but you're kind of sharing a story with them so they feel a little bit entertained. Storytelling is not easy, but it's something I'm constantly working on. But creating engaging content is a never-ending learning process. Also, YouTube it's social media.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't just post a video and then forget about it. See you later. Bye-bye. You get that your viewers are always going to comment. They're always going to ask questions. And the best way you can build an engaging relationship with them is to respond to their comments. I found it means so much to them. I mean, when I first started the channel, I responded to every single comment I got. At least I tried to respond to everyone. And you just build such a relationship, and you get people that, they start responding to every video, and that helps the video, the analytics of the video. So you've got to think of YouTube as social media. Now, to be honest with you, it's tough. I can't respond to every comment anymore. That's one of the downfalls of channel growth. But every morning I get up with a cup of coffee for at least a half hour, and that's all I do is just respond to comments. You have to do that. The other thing, and we kind of already talked about this, is continually putting out content. That's so important, because not only do your viewers who, maybe they love that one video, now they're waiting for the next one. And so if you keep putting out new content, they're going to stay with you and they're going to look forward to that next video. But the problem is if you don't do that, not only will you lose that viewer, but you're also the YouTube algorithm isn't going to like you, and it'll stop promoting your content. And that's going to make it difficult to reach new viewers. So you've got to be consistent with posting your video. And the last thing, and this one is kind of personal for me, is when you're making videos, be positive. No one wants to watch you having a bad day. So if you're having, if that day wasn't the greatest, don't film that day. Make sure you're having a good day when you're making that video. I think if a viewer leaves your video and they felt like it was a positive experience, they're going to want to come back. And so, I try to always be positive in my videos, and if I'm having a bad day, which we all have, I just don't turn the camera on that day.
Yeah, I mean, those are some really good points. I wanted to follow up real quick on the comments part of it, because I know with Instagram and Facebook and Twitter as well, the more engagement you get, which is comments, the more that specific video or that specific post is going to be put higher up in the ranks. They're going to try to get that in front of more people, because all these social media sites, their goal is to provide a good experience for whoever their audience is. So if they're always putting bad content or disengaging content in front of people, like, they're failing as well. So every time that you respond to a comment, you're one, maybe potentially inviting a follow-up comment, but two, you're also telling the algorithm, like, yep, we're paying attention that there is still activity on this specific post. So that's massive. Even if it's just something, some sort of activity, some acknowledgement is massive. There's a couple people that have been on the show on the Instagram side that they'll get 400 or 500 comments on each of their posts, and they still respond to all of them, and it's time consuming, but every time they do that, it's reassuring the algorithm that, like, they made the right call and putting this post up in front of their viewers.
Yeah, I mean, YouTube is at the end of the day, YouTube cares about watch time.
Yes.
So they want to know how much time people watch. But you're right, the engagement is also a very important piece of the analytics. But for me, I think when somebody posts a comment, and if it's a question and I answer their question, they're happy with it, you've just created kind of a new super fan, right? You just help somebody on a personal level. They're going to be much more willing to come back and watch another video or video after that and comment again. And so for me, it really is that social element by building that relationship with the viewer. I wish I had the time to respond to every single comment. I try as hard as I can. But there is the little heart button. So I at least try to make sure I at least liked their comment.
Right.
But when I get the opportunity to answer a question, that's so important.
The other one I want to touch on there that you said is continually put out content, because that is true on multiple platforms. There's a lot of value that people put into the consistency trait. If you look at even how politics are viewed, like, if you're consistent in politics, whether you agree or disagree, a lot of times people are like, okay, great, you're consistent with your beliefs. Same goes for how you treat other people. If you're consistently treat people the same way, people they tend to trust that. Okay, I know how you're going to respond. Same goes for content creation. Get it out there constantly. I think that's probably one of the challenges that a lot of people run into. Life happens, right? Sometimes you get laryngitis and you got to record a show when you could barely even talk, but the show must go on. But and you even said it earlier, you've got a commitment now essentially to your audience, to people who they're expecting this content, this value, and as soon as you remove that expectation, then they lose some of that faith and they lose some of that trust. And if you are seeking sponsorship, which a lot of people, that's what they listen to the show for, they want to know how to do that. That's an important element. That's a very important element.
Yeah, I try to post at least once a week. Sometimes if I am lucky, I'll post 2 videos a week.
Mm-hmm.
I probably overproduce my videos as opposed to other channels. That's why I don't put out more content. But what you can do, with the great thing about YouTube is you can cheat a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And if so you're really having a busy week and you just don't have the time to, film something or edit something, you can always just go live on YouTube and you still have a way to engage with your audience. And so I've done that a few times where, I'll just turn on the camera in the garage and I'll open up a box of something that I got in the mail and just talk to the viewers for a little bit. And so at least you're still getting consistent content. Live video isn't the best, but it's still an opportunity to communicate with your audience when maybe you're short for time.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I started doing Facebook Live shows. I've probably done about a little over 20 now, and the quality is never quite as good. And you don't do the editing, and but people are okay with that. They get it, they're cool with it, and it's a kind of a nice mix up sometimes too, to say, hey, here's my normal content, and here's something that's a little different. It's a little bit more off the cuff, it's a little bit more raw, but it also, I think, live video shows a little bit more of your personality too, unfiltered, untouched. And I think that builds a little bit more trust with the audience too.
Yeah, absolutely. They get to see who you really are besides all the video editing.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But just so people know, I am going to edit this episode because I've coughed way more than what you're actually going to hear. But I'm going to try to get rid of most of that. But I will leave this part in.
You're doing great.
Where I'm talking about the editing. I'll leave that in because that's good to know. The last thing I want to touch on is storytelling. So you mentioned that. Tell a good story. I mean, that's honestly what we're all trying to do here with this whole thing. That's whether it's social media, whether it's YouTube specifically, it's podcasting. We're trying to tell a good story, and that's what people remember. That's what creates the emotional reaction. Honestly, I structure my show around that. The first half of my show is typically the story. People come for the second half. The value is delivered ultimately in the second half. But the first half, that's where we're building relationships. That's where we're trying to figure out who this other person is that we don't know yet. How do they think? How do they get to where they're at? And it's fun. It's fun to go through that and hear those stories. So you got to do it.
Yeah, it wasn't something I didn't learn until maybe last year that I really started understanding how important story was in a video. We would just go out and film something, but now I'm really trying to find ways to just make it a story. Like the Mojave video we did, I had done the Mojave Trail 3 years ago, but we weren't able to complete it. And so this last video I did, it was all about taking the rock that you're supposed to deposit on Traveler's Monument. And so the goal from starting to end was to get that rock all the way to Traveler's Monument. And you'll have to watch the video to know if we did it or not. But it was about that rock and our adventure. And so it was a way to kind of incorporate a little bit of a story into that. And so I'm just trying to find little ways to do that. I mean, it's tough when you're just, out wheeling a trail or camping, but I think there's always ways you can find a way to put a story, some way that you're transformed or somebody else is transformed along the way. I think is easy to do if you just try hard enough.
Definitely. Well, this next little section here is what we kind of touched on already. Partnerships. That's actually early on I regretted the name of my show because I called it Sponsored Rider Club Podcast, and everybody's talking about like, no, it's not sponsorship, it's partnership. But like, hey, it is what it is at this point. I'm not changing it right now. But how have you done that though? I mean, you've talked about a couple of specific companies that you've built relationships with. You've built partnerships with other people, like I know Overland X. You've done a number of videos and with them, but how did you do that? How did you get these relationships in place, and how have you worked to sustain them?
It's just been slow building relationships. Going to events and meeting people and talking to folks. I don't know. I mean, it's easy to promote gear on the channel, products that we're using, because we're taking stuff out in harsh conditions and, using them. And so I think people are willing to like, hey, we want to work with you because we see what you're doing. And so we want to, put, our tires on your Jeep so we can see it, out on the trail. But working with everybody else it's just been a slow growth, and choosing the right people to work with, and, people that have the same kind of values that I have and the beliefs that I have. It's fun. I've met a lot of great people, but for, companies to put their product on my Jeep it's a big deal for me. I don't want to put something on my vehicle that, one, is going to fail, or two, is going to fail on if a viewer decides that they want to buy that. I want to make sure it's good quality stuff. And so probably early on, I was quick to do reviews of products right when I got them. We unbox them and say, here it is. What I've learned over time is it's better to use something for a little while before I tell my viewers, hey, this is good stuff. And so when I work with partners and sponsors, I kind of go into it with that. I'm like, look, I want you to know that, I want to use this a little bit before I talk to my viewers about it. And so, but the great thing is when a sponsor says yes to that response, you already know that it's probably going to be a pretty good relationship.
Yeah, that's
when they're allowing you to be honest about their product, that it's already a good step in the right direction.
I love that. We talk on the show a lot, like, and you had even said this with 67 Designs, where it's good to you sponsor, you promote the products that you believe in already or that you're using already. Now, you don't always have that opportunity. Sometimes those opportunities come up and they say, hey, look, we would love for you to run this. And that might be your first exposure to that product. And it is phenomenal if you can get a little bit of a story, behind that. Like, how did it actually perform? Like, what did I do with it? Because, a lot of things that I ask in a show for people too, I say, hey, what are examples of times when you had a bad partnership or a bad relationship with a sponsor? And sometimes it comes down to, hey, this product wasn't as good as it's supposed to be. It put me in a bad situation on a trail. It put me in a bad situation on a race. But they're kind of stuck. Like, they don't want to badmouth. I don't want them to badmouth the product. But they're saying, now I'm stuck. I wish I would have vetted it properly. I wish I would have went with my gut, or I wish I would have, tested it ahead of time, or something else differently. So I think what you just brought up there that's a pretty good point, because people listening, almost everybody listening, has some sort of product level sponsorship. Parts discounts or whatever it is. Almost everybody has that. And I guarantee that there's people out there like, yep, I kind of got stuck with that product that I didn't really want, and I didn't know how to say no.
Yeah. And you mentioned Overland X, who is my good buddy Marco.
Yeah.
The cool thing is he's testing different gear than I'm testing.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of adds to, kind of our queue of stuff we can talk about, because now you have, when you have friends that are doing the same thing that you're using, but maybe they're using different gear, it's nice to be able to, oh, you know what, I like that. Let me start using that product. And then maybe the company will take notice, and then they'll talk to and reach out to you. And so it's good to have friends that are doing the same thing you're doing, but maybe using different stuff as well. So
yeah, definitely. Well, I want to talk a little bit about lessons learned here. Probably some of this is going to come from the YouTube side. Another one, actually, I promised to bring up a little bit too, might be the trademarking side. But what are the things that's on your mind that people should just, I mean, maybe what can they learn from you? What things that maybe you've messed up in the past that, if people just hear it now, they can avoid that mistake.
Well, I've made a lot of mistakes. That'd be a long.
I'll say, yeah, we only got like an hour here. We don't have that much more time, but yeah.
Yeah. I think when it comes to working with sponsors, just like I said, just don't be quick to say yes. Make sure the product and the people that you're working with are a good fit. When it comes to YouTube, don't try to be somebody else. Don't try to be like another YouTube channel. Don't try to act when you're in your video. I did a couple of those videos early on, and I look back at them. I'm like, really, Brad, what were you thinking? That was just stupid. But don't be somebody you're not. Be yourself in a video, because honestly, the viewers, they'll see right through that. And so when you're sincere and honest, they're going to respect you so much, and they're going to value your opinion over time. And so that's something I learned early on. Don't make the same mistake I did. Don't try to copy another channel, and don't try to be somebody you're not.
Definitely.
I think, for folks, they could learn maybe from me is maybe diversifying your revenue stream early on. If this is something that, if you want YouTube to be a source of revenue for you for, whatever it is you're doing, to diversify a little bit. Don't just be dependent on the ad revenue. We talked about the Amazon and the paid sponsorship. There's also Patreon, which is good as well.
Yeah.
And that's another way to get, Patreon is where you can have a little community of people that kind of donate to your channel for every, on a monthly basis or per video basis. And you build a great relationship with those people. But I would say, diversification for me has been probably one of my long-term successes. And you mentioned the trademark thing.
Yes.
And I had somebody tell me about 6 months ago, like, Brad, did you trademark your TrailRecon thing? And I had an aha moment. I'm like, man, why have I not done that yet? And so, so that it's a slow process. It's not something that you can just like submit a paperwork and all of a sudden you have a trademark. There's you got to pay a fee, and it's got to go through a pretty lengthy review process. And I'm still in that process, but at least I finally did it. So I think if somebody has a brand that, whether it's your Instagram name or YouTube name or whatever, you want to secure that a little bit. And so getting that trademark is something that I would do early on as well. Lesson learned from me. I didn't do that early on.
Yeah, that's, I actually don't want to talk about it too much because it stresses me out. But like, there's a lot of people out there that do personal brands, right? And you could trademark your own personal brand. For example, I bring up Tom Brady on this show too much. I think every time I bring him up, I lose half my listeners. But like, he has his own trademark brand, and I'm actually reading a book right now. Listen to this. I'm reading a book on personal branding. It's Personal Branding for Dummies. It is so good. But they talk about that in there too, right? There's all these elements that go into personal brand, but then you can actually start locking these things down. If you use a certain color for a certain logo for your name, like you can trademark that, and now you're protected. Especially with social media nowadays, like you can duplicate, your social media identity can be duplicated fairly easily. I'll give one example of this, and she'd be comfortable with me talking about it because she's pretty vocal about it on social media. But Pleasant Cook, aka 4x4 Barbie, she's been on this show like 4 times now. But she's got a really strong Instagram following, and there's like every couple of days there's like a copy of her page that comes up. It's ridiculous. And like they'll do some little tweak, but basically they're trying to be her. And she's done a good job actually of letting people know, like, hey, another fake one's out there. Why don't you report them for me and we'll get rid of it. But there's a lot of risk out there, honestly, that I don't think it's not the first thing people think about, but when there's a problem, it's the only thing you think about.
Yeah, it's definitely something that you don't want to be stressed out about. I can tell you from a copyright perspective, people have taken my videos and put them on their channels
really
many, many times, which is crazy to me. But thankfully, there's a tool in YouTube, the creator section, that allows you to find them, and you got to go through this process of reporting them or whatever. it's crazy that we have to worry about those things, but it's definitely something, worry about your branding and trademarking and making sure that people aren't stealing your content. Unfortunately, it's something you have to stay on top of.
Yeah. No, it's good. It's good. Okay, so I have this new section here that I haven't been doing it very long, but it's called the lightning round. All right, so we kind of go through a couple of questions pretty quickly just to kind of knock them off the list here. So if you could sponsor anyone in the world, who would you choose and why?
Okay, so this is a tough question because I don't know of a single individual that would be fitting to have TrailRecon on their thing.
Yep.
But there's this really cool race every year. It's called the Rebel Rally, and it's for women, and they do this 10-day, 1,200-mile trip across the desert, and they get sponsored, but they do it without any electronics. It's all about maps and compasses, and so there's all these race teams that do it, and it's just a really cool event. And I think it would, if I had it in my budget to be able to sponsor one of those teams, would be really cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I like that. That seems like it fit pretty well too with your brand. Kind of like the survival. That'd be pretty cool. I hope you can figure something out like that too in the future.
Yeah, it would be cool. I had a friend that she did that race a while back and she loved it. So.
Oh, perfect. All right, if you could use I already know the answer to this one. If you could use only one social media platform, which would you choose and why?
Well, so obviously it's YouTube for me because YouTube is a social media platform. But I would say Instagram would be a very close second. Mm-hmm. YouTube is what I do, and I get a lot of engagement from the viewers. But the problem is that I only post once or twice a week on YouTube, whereas Instagram, I'm posting every day, and I'm on there multiple times a day. So Instagram is a great platform. I've got Facebook as well, but I YouTube is my heart and soul, but Instagram is probably where I spend a lot of my time throughout the day.
Yeah, and Instagram is very popular with people on the show because motorsports is a very visual experience, right? There's a lot of cool things that come along with it that you can see, that you can hear, that you can watch in videos. So yeah, it's a popular platform.
Yeah.
So who has been your biggest supporter?
Hands down my wife.
Mm-hmm.
That's an easy one, but really I did the math, and last year in 2018, I spent 26 days camping in my rooftop tent, which means I was gone for more than 26 days total. And so I'm gone a lot. And, when I'm home, I'm filming in the garage or I'm sitting behind the computer editing. And man, she is unbelievably supportive of what I'm doing and building this. And I couldn't have asked for a better partner in my marriage.
That's perfect. At 26 days, that's pretty serious. That's pretty good.
Yeah, it was crazy because I counted that up. I'm like, really? I spent that many days camping?
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Well, hey, we're at the finish line now. That's where we kind of wrap things up. What's one thing that our listeners need to take away from this? Assuming that they forgot, 99% of what we just talked about. What's one thing they need to take away?
Look, creating videos is a lot of work, but it is the most value you can offer your audience. It doesn't have to be some highly produced video. Just provide some value to them and do it consistently, and you'll be able to build some great relationships with your followers.
Mark Zuckerberg, who's the CEO of Facebook, he basically said that, video is the future of content, and that at some point that's pretty much all you'll be able to consume. Now, there's still going to be other things out there, right? Because video does require some effort, but it's the best way to connect with somebody that's not sitting in the same room with you. You just, there's nothing else right now that can give you that same experience.
Yeah, I agree.
What's the best way for us to connect with you?
Sending me a message on Instagram at TrailRecon is probably the easiest way because I check that several times a day.
And it works because that's how you and I originally connected. So, hey,
that's right,
shot, folks. Well, hey, Brad, I really appreciate taking the time today and for putting up with me and my voice. But honestly, too, for, I guess, teaching this audience a lot more about what they can do to make better content, what they can do to help establish better relationships. And then for me too, like I watch your show and I'm studying some of your techniques too. And one of those that I just wanted to highlight and recognize here for you, which is probably why you've had success with your audience and with partnerships, is that positivity piece. You know, I can really feel your genuine positivity and excitement for every show that you put on. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate you today. But we got to close things out, so I'm going to leave you with this. Have fun and ride safe. Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Sponsored Rider Club podcast, and thanks for dealing with my voice throughout the entire thing. But I hope you had fun with Brad. I know I did. And at this point, I kind of want to leave you with a few things. One is be sure to subscribe that we don't miss any of our upcoming guests. And then follow us on social media, specifically our Facebook page, because that's where we do our live shows. So that is a fun way to interact with the guests and interact with me. We can go on there, ask questions, watch us. If you miss it, no big deal, because I end up publishing all those episodes right here on the normal podcast platform. To get some insider access and upcoming guests, check out the Sponsored Rider Club on Facebook. You can ask questions there as well. There's a number of people who will respond, share their best practices, share lessons learned. It's a community. So we're all here to support one another. A special thanks goes out to our sponsors, AMSOIL, Neverlift Racing, SolderWeld, Bold Racing, TopToPodium.com, Crash Act Industries, and I also want to shout out some of our other partners, GSP XTV, MBRP, HMK USA, and Stud Boy Traction. I look forward to serving you again next week. Until then, have fun and ride safe.